Welcome to Trek Trav. I am Trav, and this is Star Trek Lower Decks of Gods and Angles. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Let's get into the review. Sometimes when you're watching Star Trek, you come across an episode that is a null. Like, I like that this episode was the way it was. Now, the episode has an ensign who is related to a god or a god alien from Star Trek TOS. We have Mariner taking this character under her wing because she's about to be kicked out of Starfleet. We have a conflict between balls and squares, and they're trying to negotiate the peace. We have the realization that everyone knows that Boimler's been reading from this pad from the Ultimate Timeline in the first episode, and he's trying to become this different version of himself by copying what the other Boimler did. Throughout this episode, we find out that one of the cubes has been murdered, which is immediately like, oh, that's interesting. I knew it wasn't going to be that this cube was actually murdered. And literally as soon as we get to the later part of the episode and we find out one of the circular ones have gone missing, I was going, this is a Romeo and Juliet. They are going to be in love. With the ensign, and I can't remember her name because, to be honest, I was just a bit like, I don't get this. I get it's a big step for Mariner to take on someone who is sort of in a similar situation that she was. Mariner's the one growing this season. I feel like the other characters are sort of in the background a lot. With Rutherford and Tendi, they're sort of stuck behind Boimler's journey to try and sort of fulfill his destiny with Dr. Tiana in terms of getting him to call him a nickname. There's some funny moments in that, and there's some interesting sort of bits in it. I just find with this episode, the conflict resolution is basically they find out that this ensign does have magical powers. It's electricity powers, but they're not very good, and for some reason she produces like rubbery lightning bolts. I just wasn't super impressed with it. Like, I think this is why I have such a problem with reviewing Lower Decks. Because if you look back on the last two seasons, I sort of give up reviewing them. Because there's nothing super exciting going on. And it sounds terrible. And it almost sounds like I don't like the show. But I do. I enjoy the show. But it's just sort of, it's good. I watch it. There's nothing hugely exciting going on. Like I want to see something big, and I want to see, but it doesn't have the same impact as, say, the live action shows, or even Star Trek Prodigy, which in its second season did some big things. This show feels very much like it doesn't want to change the concept that much, but at the same time, it wants to be funny, but it also wants to sort of have a bit more drama, and it really sort of doesn't. And this is going to sound terrible, and it's a hot take. I kind of get why it's getting cancelled. Now, viewership-wise, I'm sure the viewership is okay, and a lot of people love Lower Decks. Lower Decks is their favorite thing, and I love Lower Decks too, and I think it's a great show. I just don't think that it has any more to give, and I'll tell you why. And I'm going to keep watching. I'm going to keep reviewing. But like, I love each one of these characters. I think that they're really, really great. The problem being that the show started off as sort of this really funny look at the lower ranks of the ship. And now it's sort of moved into, well, that's gone. We've already done all the jokes with that. So now it's just sort of a bit of reference mania and a bit of silliness. There's no huge build. I don't know how to sort of put it into words. I feel like the story of the Cerritos, like if they took it to live action, I feel that the characters might get a bit of a more fulfilling story arc. But at the moment, it's a bit like Mariner's getting a bit of development. Boimler's doing what he always does and trying to be something else to impress people. Rutherford and Tendi are just kind of there, and I really love the Orion elements of Tendy's character. I like learning about the Orions. Rutherford hasn't had a look like a really devoted story to him since, but apparently in this episode he's going to copy Boimler and try and do what other Rutherford did. I did find bits of this funny, like when they have the baby and it's a square with a circle on the bottom and they're like, it's perfect. I did like the sort of the understanding that the god ensign is really good at engineering, and she's actually very talented. She's just a bit clumsy and a bit sort of rule breakery. But I like, once again, I like this episode. It's nothing super duper special. The reason this review is late is literally because I don't know what to talk about because there's nothing big happening. It's not Picard season 3. It's not Prodigy season 2. It's really hard out of all of the new Trek shows. Lower Decks feels like the one that's sort of treading water. It feels like they don't have anything huge to tell us. So it's a good show, but it never sort of progresses to a great show. Whereas like other animated shows like Prodigy for one, but also like Clone Wars or even like Solar Opposites, which Mike McMahon worked on, Rick and Morty. Like there's some big growth in not growth, but there's some big stories being told in animation, and Lower Decks doesn't seem to do that. Like Solar Opposites, I was invested in the wall people. Like I loved the characters, the aliens. They were all really, really good. Rick and Morty, although I haven't watched a lot of it, has some really high concept stuff being told in a stupid way. Stupid as in funny. And it's a really sort of eclectic mix of, it has the elements of being kind of like Back to the Future, but also being a little bit Star Trek and a little bit Doctor Who and a little bit, it has a big feeling and connection to it. Solar Opposites, while not as popular, has some really great sort of character moments and great sort of like interesting side things. And Lower Decks hasn't found that yet. And it's 5th season, it's the last season, and we only have a couple of episodes to go. So while I love this episode, I'd like to know what you thought about this. And I want to know what you feel about Lower Decks at this point. Like, is it as amazing as it was in season 1? Is it grabbing you? Am I just being negative about Lower Decks? And once again, need to stress, I don't hate Lower Decks. I will continue to watch Lower Decks. I love all the characters in Lower Decks. I just feel like the show has sort of hit a plateau and can't really go anywhere. I'm hoping that with the spatial anomalies in the multiverse stuff, that we might get a Kelvin cameo, or we might get sort of someone from a mirror universe, or we might get maybe just something big happening, or they link it back to Prodigy, which would be fantastic because the second season of Prodigy, they had a lot of spatial phenomena as well. So it'd be great if they sort of linked together and sort of said, we're the animated shows, we're ending. But yeah, fantastic. I really enjoyed it. Make sure to come back next week for my next Star Trek Lower Decks review, and also on Sunday for your Star Trek Voyager review, and also something special coming on Tuesday. Have a great night / day / whatever the hell it is where you are. If you're in Antarctica, it's always day or it's always night. See ya.